record this then for the online students so they have a copy of everything. Plus, this will be your review. So we're going to kind of set a new rule for the rest of the semester. Basically, we're just not going to use computers at all in class. No need. In the past, of course, taking notes was a big deal because you hear the lecture once in class, and based on what you got from that, you took a big test, and that big test, of course, was determined your grade, right? So note taking was like a huge thing. And if you want to keep a pad of paper out, to jot a few things down, that's fine. But the computers are gone from the desk for the rest of the semester, unless for a specific reason. So let's just do that, because you can get all the answers if you miss something for the study guide by simply listening to the lecture again. So that's note taking. I'm doing your note taking for you. Let's put it that way. And also too, I want to review from last time the assignment. And if you remember, I gave you in this particular activity, an activity instead of, and I need to share, my bad. Let's do this properly. Okay, so I basically said that we're going to do an activity, and it's actually 37 questions on the Constitution, things you need to know for the state test. And there'll be state test questions on the next study guide. So tonight, I'll put together a study guide based on the last couple of lectures and 9, 10, and 11, and the study stack. And you can expect 10 questions from this study stack and a few others that will go toward your state test grade. And so far, everybody is passing that. I've given you questions before. You probably didn't even know they were there, but they go into your exam grade. And as long as everybody keeps answering them all correctly, that's great. And so you'll be able to pass that state test along with learn all the college material. So expect a study guide tonight. It'll take a while to put it together, and you can always go back and review. But I'm hearing from people that it's best if they just listen and absorb as much as they can the first time through. And if they have to go back, they do. All right, so here we are in a very important critical phase in the election, right? So we're looking at 48 days. We know that people in many states are actually voting now. Next week, more states, next week, more states and more states. So it's really, we're looking at 50 days of voting before election day. So everything now really matters. Now, I'm preparing you for your research paper. Now, you're required by the college to do a research paper. I'll just move this down here. And I'm not going to tell you what the question is, and we're not going to give you that question until after the election. As you'll see, we can't. There's information you'll need to know in order to do your paper, and we have to wait till the election to find out. So for example, if you look down here, you'll need to know the presidents by their number and party in order, and then their ranking according to this last Siena poll right here. All right, from basically Hoover, who didn't do so well, to Mr. Trump. Now discount, please do not look at these numbers 44, 42, because they're irrelevant. You can't evaluate a president, at least until that election happens. So this is just, I think, unfair to even include him. But look at Obama. This is great stuff here, because he's bouncing around. He's going from 8 to 18, depending on the poll, right? He's safely in the green area, but one poll had him up in the top 25%. That's an interesting one to watch. So we'll see. This will settle down over time, as these presidents tend to do. For example, Roosevelt at 2 tends to stay 1, 2, or 3. All right, now, what makes a great president? How do you become a great president? How do you move from the red area to the orange, or from the orange area to the green, and then from the green to the blue? Well, okay, so being a double major, history and political science, we can tend to look at these things rather seriously. Okay, so let me put this up here so it's most out of the way. I want you to get your cameras out and take a picture of this screen, right? So get your smartphones out and take a picture. Give you a second to do that, because we're looking at 8 factors that determine how great a president is. Now, Siena College has like 30 factors that they factor in on each president. We're just going to go with 8. You may decide to add 1 or 2 of your own for your research paper. So this constitutes the core of what you'll be writing about in that paper. Don't start yet. Don't start till after the election. Why? Because number one, you can't really determine until November 3rd or maybe even a week later. You have to win a second term. Any president who doesn't win a second term does not get the validation of the American people. And they always drop down the list many spaces. Like George H.W. Bush drops down. He was a great president, but he didn't win re-election, so he loses that validation. And there's scarcely a president in American history who didn't win 2 terms that falls into the great category. So that's a big one. That's an important one. The next one is facing huge challenges, big challenges, and succeed with them. Presidents that don't face major challenges, that go through 8 years of basically, everything's going well, they don't rank in the top 25 or even 50%. You have to face big challenges like FDR with World War II and the Great Depression, like Lincoln with the Civil War, or you go to Washington, who had to found a country from scratch. That's why they're 1, 2, and 3, because they faced the biggest challenges and overcame them. So presidents that face big challenges and succeed are the ones that do well. Hoover had a big challenge, failed, didn't get reelected, and so he's down at the bottom. Buchanan, 1 term, failed to keep the country together, goes to the bottom. So this is really important. Then you also have to overcome political opposition, because there's always 2 parties. They're pulling in different directions, and you've got to figure out, okay, so how can I work with the other party and with my own party to get big things to happen? This is the only way to get major laws passed that endure over time and make big changes. Then you have to avoid a major slip up. So we look at Lyndon Johnson. The Vietnam War was his banana peel. It undid his presidency. We look at Watergate and Nixon, and that event upended what was going to be a top 10 presidency, and it's gone now. We now call these moments, these slip on a banana peel moments, Katrina moments. Why? Because George W. Bush, there was a hurricane came in, big one, slammed into New Orleans, and the response from the state, local, and national government was awful. And the photo ops made it worse. His statements made it worse. And his popularity just plummeted from that point on as people lost confidence in George H.W. Bush. So he would have been much higher had it not been for a hurricane that he frankly didn't handle very well. 3,000 people died in that. Now, your party also should win future presidential elections too. This kind of ties in with number 7. You reshape the electorate. Ronald Reagan reshaped the electorate, and his party continued to win for about 28 years. Jefferson did the same thing, and they won for about 28 years. Presidents that reshape the electorate go way up. And so this means that your party will win elections going into the future. So your policies, your ideas, your direction endures. That's kind of important. Then you have to be remembered fondly. You look at John F. Kennedy, he didn't even finish his first term, but he's remembered so fondly that he goes up, right? Washington fondly, Lincoln fondly, FDR fondly. You look at Obama, people like Obama, right? That's an important factor. How do people remember you? And then let's jump down to number 8. You really have to control the House and the Senate for 2 years at least, because you can't pass major legislation without that. No matter how well you work with the opposition, you've got to have that advantage. Obama had 2 years, Trump's had 2 years, but then the parties the Democrats got control of the House. Trump lost that. Obama, same thing happened to him. Same thing happened to Bill Clinton. But you got to get those 2 years in to pass major legislation. Now, that chart right there is kind of the basis of where you're going to do your paper. The thing about it is that I mean this sincerely. I've never seen a president get hit with so much during an election year as the incumbent. And it's not stopping. We have this huge hurricane that just hit Mobile and that southern part of Mississippi, Alabama, and the panhandle of Florida. And it's a slow moving storm. And those are the worst because they dump so much rain. In some places, they have 3 feet of rain. And this is bad news, but we have had more storms, more named storms this year hit the American coastline than at any time in 100 years. We haven't seen 4 hurricane level force winds hit the coast since 2004. You combine that with this. These fires are insane out there in California and in Oregon along the coast of Washington. So much so that the cloud of smoke is even affecting us a little bit today. We've been protected by a little bit of a high pressure system here, but so it's really clobbering this part, but they're seeing the smoke all the way far as Canada, East Canada. These fires have leveled entire cities. 50 or so people have perished in the flames. It's a terrible event. The president went there finally. It's been going on for months, but he finally visited California. And when they asked him, look, we've got to fix climate change. The West is drying out. It's getting more and more desert, more dry. We need to fix this climate change issue. If you ever lived in California, you know how passionate they are about climate change and about how we need to, correct this environmental thing. And he says, it'll get cold soon. Don't worry about it. He is a climate change denier. It is not an issue on his agenda. And that's why Biden is making it one of his big 4 issues, because the climate is really important. We've had 10 out of the last 12 years been the hottest on record. So we have to look at those kinds of issues. But whether it's climate change or whether it's the fires or whether it's this or that, the way you view that will be based largely on the bubble of media that you listen to, whose spin will become the truth. And so the president's explanations on this end are interpreted one way, on this end interpreted quite a different way. And so I like to get away from the spin. I like to get you to hear people in their own words and actually hear what the president says rather than what people say the president said, right? So the problem with the president right now is that here we are 50 days away from the election and Bob Woodward's book comes out and it is, wow. Because what's different about this book from other Woodward books is quite simple. He's got 9 hours of the president talking. And more clips are coming out every day. And this is what we call the drip, drip, drip of bad information. So you hear something the president said, oh, that shocks you. Then you hear another one and another one and another one. And all this is happening in the lead up to the election. This is not good if you're running a campaign to have somebody the stature of Woodward constantly releasing audio. And this one was released on the day yesterday that the book was put on the shelves. And here's what Woodward taped.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Yes,
because I don't want to create a panic.
So he said, I downplayed it. Then he tells her I didn't. I upplayed it. And those bands the president loves to talk about, okay, they weren't once the studies been exempt. Shocking thing is that he knew. This is from Complications. Here it is.
This thing is a killer if it gets you. If you're the wrong person, you don't.
Okay, so what I did was I skipped the spin guy. We don't want to listen to him, but I just wanted to play the first clip, a little piece of it, and then play the clip that just got released. And apparently Mr. Trump had a friend who died of COVID, and this is back in April. I mean, we were still in school, and he knew how bad it was from personal experience. And here's what he tells Woodward. So let's go ahead and play it.
You don't have a chance.
Yes, exactly.
Chance.
Of coronavirus complications. Here it is.
This thing is a killer if it gets you. If you're the wrong person, you don't have a chance.
Yes, exactly. And
like
so,
a friend of mine died, very great real estate developer from Manhattan. He died yesterday.
I know. Listen, students of mine, I teach a journalism seminar, have written me, have had it. And one of the women said she had it. They said she was cured, and they kept coming back with new symptoms. Strange things happened. She had intense headaches.
What happened?
And she's in agony. And they're telling her, oh, you're cured now. You're over it. So you've said it. This is a monster. This is a scourge. And
it is the plague.
It is the plague. And
it is the plague. Okay, so that was in April. And yet, since then, he's had these outdoor rallies and has not encouraged mask wearing. In fact, quite the opposite. You know, he's been kind of a, well, wear them if you want, don't worry if you don't. The latest rallies he had, most of the crowd were not wearing masks or even asked to do so. And the mask issue becomes an important one in the campaign. Biden says, you know, every state needs to pass a mask mandate, right? He kind of said that, and it just needs to happen. Like, you have to wear masks in school. So here we go. Let's take a look at this exchange from yesterday. And this was a fascinating one. The president was interviewed on ABC News, had a town hall where people asked him questions, and somebody asked him, you know, why he has not had a universal mask mandate for the whole country. And he flips it on Biden, which is interesting. A good question is, you asked, like Joe Biden, they said, we're going to do it, a national mandate on masks Tuesday. He said, but he didn't do it. I mean, he never did. Time out, okay? Biden's not president. As interesting as that comment is, he can't do it. He has no authority. He's like Lincoln, once he wins the election, has got to wait to be sworn in as president. Only Buchanan could have stopped those states from leaving the union, because we only have one president at a time. And Biden tweeted out quickly, excuse me, you're president, not me. President Donald Trump criticized the Democratic rival Joe Biden on Thursday evening for failing to enforce a national mask mandate, but Biden as a candidate has no authority to do so. Then there's top disease infectious expert Anthony Fauci. And his name keeps coming up again and again. He's one of the most celebrated people in the country in terms of infectious diseases and knowing more about them than anybody else. All right, well, this idea of wearing masks is really kind of an important issue in this campaign. I'm going to back out and we're going to see if I can find the Fauci tape here. My apologies for the fumbling here, but I want to make sure we get a commercial-free take. Okay, so here's Fauci talking recently in an interview about the importance of wearing masks. And again, this is the #1 infectious disease specialist in the entire country and has been for a long time. Okay, so here's what he said.
The thinking was it was not necessary.
It's a great question, Judy. And the thinking is really now influenced by information that's coming in. And the information is that more and more accumulation of data indicate that people who are without symptoms at all can transmit the virus. But importantly, they can do it merely by speaking. So there's been a recent study that came out that said, even the force from your voice of speaking, there is a degree of aerosolization, namely the virus can come out not very far, a few feet and down. So even though the perfect solution to this is if everyone at all times could stay 6 feet separated from another person. But as you correctly mentioned, this is not always feasible. There are times when you have to do necessary functions. You have to get food. You have to get drugs from the pharmacy. And you might inadvertently be in a situation where you're close enough where that kind of transmission can take place. And importantly, I think what people don't fully appreciate is that putting a mask on yourself is more to prevent you from infecting someone else. And if everybody does that, we're each protecting each other, because the data is it's more efficient to prevent transmitting to others than it is to prevent transmission to yourself.
Okay, so we'll pause there. So that's why you're wearing masks. You're wearing masks to protect other people. You may have the virus, I may have the virus and not know it. 40% never show symptoms. But it's an idea of protection. Now, why is the United States doing so poorly with this whole thing? Let's take a look at the data. The #1 source of data on the coronavirus worldwide is a site called Johns Hopkins University. Now, these are the infectious disease experts, and they have tracked every case all around the world since day one. This was the university, by the way, that was trained and did the job for the pandemic 100 years ago, the Spanish flu. It's their trained doctors that went out into the battlefield and tried to figure out ways to prevent our troops from getting infected. I don't know if you know this about World War I, but we lost about 120,000 men or something. Half of those died of disease, mostly from the Spanish flu. And we didn't want anybody to know that, because if the Germans found out we were weak and the French were weak and they were But what we didn't know at the same time is the Germans were hiding the fact that they were getting hit by this same epidemic too. It took 670,000 Americans. This was the flu 100 years ago. Well, which countries are doing the best at controlling what we call flattening the curve? Right now, the worst is India. India is not going well. And then the United States. Here's the United States line. We have not flattened the curve. We did show some good signs here, but then right now in the last little bit, I guess yesterday it was 58,000 nationwide. So Brazil also didn't do well. Other countries did great. I mean, look at Spain, France, Colombia, Peru, all flattened the curve. Mexico's even done better. And then the countries done the best are countries that are not shy about wearing masks. South Korea, Japan, Singapore, China, countries that are used to wearing masks and will wear masks, and the population will wear them, flatten the curve. When I look at racing in the United States, that's kind of how I judge things in some ways. In triathlon, we've canceled every triathlon. The Boston Marathon may get canceled again for the second year in a row because we're not controlling the rate. But they're racing in Europe. They're socially distancing, of course, they're wearing masks and they're racing responsibly, but their infection rate is so low that they're able to have races and just conduct life as normal, like in New Zealand, Australia. Utah, how we doing? We've done pretty well, but we've just seen an uptick right here. There's the recent data, and we're now at a 12% infection rate. Our high was in the midsummer at 13%. And we dropped down to 7. We got to get this down to 3 and 2 and 1. And so wearing masks becomes really important. If you're wondering why I'm not there, is look at these statistics here. The people that are most affected, of course, are people that are older. And I'm 66 years old, and it's just going to be really bad. But then again, I don't want to, contribute to the problem. So every time I'm out, I wear masks as much as I can. All right, so is this the banana peel for President Trump? Is this the issue? And by the way, it is the #1 voting issue. Everything else is secondary to this. And so as we kind of go to the next step, yes, we have fires. Yes, we have hurricanes. Yes, we have the economy not doing well. All these things are happening. Yes, we have protests and going on. But the key of this whole thing is, what's the actions of the president? Has he done enough? And will he be judged as doing great, like FDR, or not so good as Hoover? And that's really going to be the outcome of this election. So let's kind of take a look now. And again, I don't like getting into all the pundits, right, speaking. I want to hear from the president himself. And so here, this is what we're going to do. We're actually going to listen to the president's inaugural address. Now, the inaugural address is really important, right? I mean, Lincoln's inaugural address is one of the greatest speeches ever given in American history, especially his second inaugural address. But this is Trump's first inaugural address. If he wins, he'll give a second, where he lays out his vision for the country. And it's important to listen to the president's own words and not listen to people spinning the story, where they're telling you what you heard, where you hear it for yourself and make your own judgments. And that's really where you need to be. You need to make your own decisions and not have other people, not me, not anybody else, make those judgments for you. So here we go. Here's the president's inaugural. I just want you to clear your desk, kick back. It's not a very long speech. It's one of the shortest in American history. So it's only 17 minutes long, but here we go. The president's vision for the country 4 years ago. Here's what he hoped would happen.
Of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
Did I get that one right?
Chief Justice Roberts, President Carter, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, fellow Americans, and people of the world, thank you. we, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and restore its promise for all of our people. Together, we will determine the course of America and the world for many, many years to come. We will face challenges. We will confront hardships, but we will get the job done. Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. And we are grateful to President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama for their gracious aid throughout this transition. They have been magnificent. Thank you. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C. and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. That all changes starting right here and right now, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you. It belongs to everyone gathered here today and everyone watching all across America. This is your day. This is your celebration. And this, the United States of America, is your country. What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. January 20th, 2017 will be remembered as the day the people became the rulers of this nation again. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. Everyone is listening to you now. You came by the tens of millions to become part of a historic movement, the likes of which the world has never seen before. At the center of this movement is a crucial conviction that a nation exists to serve its citizens. Americans want great schools for their children, safe neighborhoods for their families, and good jobs for themselves. These are just and reasonable demands of righteous people and a righteous public. But for too many of our citizens, a different reality exists. Mothers and children trapped in poverty in our inner cities, rusted out factories scattered like tombstones across the landscape of our nation, an education system flush with cash, but which leaves our young and beautiful students deprived of all knowledge. And the crime, and the gangs, and the drugs that have stolen too many lives and robbed our country of so much unrealized potential. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. We are one nation, and their pain is our pain. Their dreams are our dreams, and their success will be our success. We share one heart, one home, and one glorious destiny. The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans. For many decades, we've enriched foreign industry at the expense of American industry, subsidized the armies of other countries while allowing for the very sad depletion of our military. We've defended other nations' borders while refusing to defend our own. And spent trillions and trillions of dollars overseas while America's infrastructure has fallen into disrepair and decay. We've made other countries rich while the wealth, strength, and confidence of our country has dissipated over the horizon. One by one, the factories shuttered and left our shores, with not even a thought about the millions and millions of American workers that were left behind. The wealth of our middle class has been ripped from their homes and then redistributed all across the world. But that is the past. And now we are looking only to the future. We assembled here today are issuing a new decree to be heard in every city, in every foreign capital, and in every hall of power. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first. Every decision on trade, on taxes, on immigration, on foreign affairs will be made to benefit American workers and American families. We must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries, making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs. Protection will lead to great prosperity and strength. I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down. America will start winning again, winning like never before. We will bring back our jobs. We will bring back our borders. We will bring back our wealth. And we will bring back our dreams. We will build new roads and highways and bridges and airports and tunnels and railways all across our wonderful nation. We will get our people off of welfare and back to work, rebuilding our country with American hands and American labor. We will follow two simple rules: buy American and hire American. We will seek friendship and goodwill with the nations of the world, but we do so with the understanding that it is the right of all nations to put their own interests first. We do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine as an example. We will shine for everyone to follow. We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth. At the bedrock of our politics will be a total allegiance to the United States of America. And through our loyalty to our country, we will rediscover our loyalty to each other. When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice. The Bible tells us how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. We must speak our minds openly, debate our disagreements honestly, but always pursue solidarity. When America is united, America is totally unstoppable. There should be no fear. We are protected, and we will always be protected. We will be protected by the great men and women of our military and law enforcement. And most importantly, we will be protected by God. Finally, we must think big and dream even bigger. In America, we understand that a nation.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me hit play again.
Is only living as long as it is striving. We will no longer accept politicians who are all talk and no action, constantly complaining, but never doing anything about it. The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. Do not allow anyone to tell you that it cannot be done. No challenge can match the heart and fight and spirit of America. We will not fail. Our country will thrive and prosper again. We stand at the birth of a new millennium, ready to unlock the mysteries of space, to free the earth from the miseries of disease, and to harness the energies, industries, and technologies of tomorrow. A new national pride will stir our souls, lift our sights, and heal our divisions. It's time to remember that old wisdom our soldiers will never forget, that whether we are black or brown or white, we all bleed the same red blood of patriots. We all enjoy the same glorious freedoms, and we all salute the same great American flag. And whether a child is born in the urban sprawl of Detroit or the windswept plains of Nebraska, they look up at the same night sky, they fill their heart with the same dreams, and they are infused with the breath of life by the same almighty creator. So to all Americans in every city, near and far, small and large, from mountain to mountain, from ocean to ocean, hear these words. You will never be ignored again. Your voice, your hopes, and your dreams will define our American destiny. And your courage and goodness and love will forever guide us along the way. Together, we will make America strong again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
All right, there you heard it. And that is the speech, which was called, because of that one quote inside, the American Carnage speech. And it's his inaugural address. So we want to examine presidents based on their own words, right? And this is important. So how has he lived up to the things that he set out to do? Was he successful in overcoming big obstacles? Because of this vision he has for America, was he able to operationalize it? And was he able to win a second term? So all of this is really important. The problem we have right now, however, is that we have this book out there, and it's also in his own words. And we had an interesting moment this morning where let's see if I can find it here really fast. Bob Woodward was actually interviewed this morning, and he's been doing interviews all week. And these interviews, let's see if I can find it. I'm sorry, I thought I had it ready. Okay, so let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. And here's the beginning of that interview. And we may have to endure a commercial, so I'll see if this will ramp up for us. Well, let's try loading it one more time.
I feel great. I feel amazing. I feel.
Okay, so we have to have a commercial. I tried to cue this up, had it ready, but it looks like I clicked accidentally and erased it. But we'll endure this commercial, and then we'll hear the counter narrative. How has Mr. Trump done based on the promises he set out and the goals he had in his inaugural speech? And so now Bob Woodward, of course, is important because of his history and what he's accomplished. So he's more than a normal voice.
Post, Bob Woodward. He's the author of the new book, Rage. We're going to kick things off with President Trump flat out lying about his approach to the pandemic. First, what he told Bob Woodward in March, followed by what he said last night.
So give me a moment of talking to somebody, going through this with Fauci or somebody who kind of it caused a pivot in your mind, because it's clear just from what's on the public record that you went through a pivot on this to, oh my God, the gravity is almost inexplicable and unexplainable.
Well, I think, Bob, really, to be honest with you,
Sure, I want you to.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't want to create a panic.
I don't want to scare people. I don't want to make people panic. And you're not going to go out and say, oh, this is death, death, death. All through January and February, you were downplaying by your own admission the severity of the crisis, that you didn't want to panic people. Not downplaying. Let me just ask you a question first. Not downplaying. I don't want to drive our nation into a panic. I'm a cheerleader for this nation. I'm the one that closed up our country. I closed it up long before any of the experts thought I should. I didn't downplay it. I actually, in many ways, I upplayed it in terms of action. My action was very strong.
I upplayed it. That's fascinating, Bob. And, congratulations on the book, first of all, and extraordinary reporting. But you heard the president last night talk about herd immunity. You heard him bouncing back and forth between strategies. And I'm just curious how that lines up with all of your conversations with a man who, you know, if you read the opening pages of The Art of the Deal, he admitted back in the 80s, I never planned for anything. I don't plan ahead. I just show up at the office, make phone calls, and see what's going to happen. Is that the approach that Donald Trump still seemed to be taking through this once-in-a-century pandemic?
What is really shocking to me, and I think shocking to people who've looked at this, is that he knew it was airborne, that it was going to be a serious situation. Back in January, the key to understanding this for me was, let me take you to that scene of January 28th in the Oval Office when his national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, says the virus will be the biggest threat, the biggest national security threat you will face as president. And then the deputy, Matt Pottinger, stepped in and provided specifics. He'd been a Wall Street Journal reporter in China for 7 years, and he knew the Chinese lied about things like this. And he had contacts who told him this is going to be like the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, and that killed, 675,000 people in this country. The president knew this in January, and I did not learn about this meeting, which is the opening of my book. I think it's one of the most historic moments in the Oval Office, where a crisis is laid out and the president doesn't level with the American people. And it's absolutely tragic. It's tragic for Donald Trump, for the country, for the 190,000 plus people who have died. If he'd been honest and shared the truth in some form, we would be in a completely different position now. It is a monumental, catastrophic leadership failure.
So my next question actually sort of connects with that sort of mindset that they discovered over time. Did Trump seem, how would you describe how he felt about talking to you? Did he seem excited about talking to you? Did he expect a positive book rather than a book that actually quotes him and lays bare his lies to the American people, and then in your analysis frames out, to use your words, a monumental, catastrophic leadership failure? What was it? What did he think he was getting?
Well, I did a book called Fear 2 years ago. When it came out, he denounced it, and people who worked for him went to him and said, you know, it's actually all true. And Trump regretted not talking to me for fear, and so he agreed to do this. And it was one of the strangest experiences of my life, because he would call me at night and I had to carry a tape recorder around in my pocket, have another one by the side of the bed, had to have one downstairs. And at one point he called, and my wife Elsa answered the phone and said, is Bob there? And she said, who is this? And he said, Donald Trump. And she said, oh, Mr. President. And I had these conversations, taped them always with his knowledge. A couple of times we really got in shouting matches, particularly about impeachment and about what my reporting showed on the virus and how he needed to mobilize the country and kind of, treat it like a Manhattan Project when they built the first atomic bomb during World War II. And he would say yes, and then he would go out and play it down, zigzag all the time. And imagine being a person who doesn't like Trump or likes and supports Trump, and you hear the absolutely spinning your head, well, it's a problem. No, it's not a problem. It's going to go away. It's going to disappear. It is when the historians put all this together, and in the last call I had with Trump when he called 1 month ago to see if I could get the Israeli UAE deal in the book, a fair question. That's an important thing that he did. I asked about the virus, and I said, so this is a month ago, and he says, nothing more could be done. Nothing more could have been done. And that just is shockingly untrue. And he failed himself. He failed the country. He failed the Republican Party. He failed the concept of the office of the president, where you have this burden on your shoulders. It's not just another person. He has this megaphone, and it saddens. And frankly, you know me. I missed being on the show, by the way, during this period. I had to go underground, but I take an ice cube before I talk. I try to cool down and not be emotional. And in this case, you put it together, and it is a staggering, monumental tragedy across the board.
It is.
And that's Bob Woodward. And again, why does he matter? Well, it's because of the history going back to 1972 and Watergate and Deep Throat and all of that, and then all the books he's done since. But the more important part is he's got the president talking for 9 hours in his own words. And so we got to hear the president give his inaugural speech. We get clips. I apologize for not being able to clip out the spinmeisters here. These two are spinmeisters. I didn't want to, play that, but in order to get to the Woodward interview, we had to. So they were trying to spin it a little bit, one way or the other, which is their job. I mean, that's what they get paid to do. But by the same token, you need to take this in yourself without spin. And I've started the book. It's riveting. There's no doubt about it. And to hear a president talk for 9 hours about his presidency and what he's done, it's fascinating stuff. So for a historian, it's amazing. So we get back to the assignment. We're building a platform for you to write this essay, the research paper after the election. Don't start before, because it's impossible to start. But let's look at these 8 things, and you may want to add a few. But this will be what you'll write your paper about, where you evaluate, without the spin, without the hype, what you think of this presidency.
Okay, Mr. Barksdale, that was the bell.
Hey, sounds good.